1911. Antarctica. An expedition lost. The year was 1911, and the world was gripped by a hunger for conquest, of mountains, of oceans, and most of all, of the frozen continent at the bottom of the earth. Antarctica was a place few had seen, and fewer had survived. The ice stretched farther than the eye could follow, swallowing men whole and leaving no trace but broken sledges and scattered bones. It was in this unforgiving season that a small team of explorers, 5 men, 2 sledges, and a dozen huskies, set out from the whaling station in South Georgia. Their goal was simple in words, impossible in nature: to reach deeper into the white silence than anyone had dared before. They carried crates of dried meat, journals wrapped in oilskin, and a flag they hoped to plant on untouched ground. The men wrote often in their diaries, their words stiff from the cold, their ink freezing on the page. One entry read, "The horizon does not move. We walk for hours, yet it is as though the ice mocks us, unchanging, eternal." Another noted the constant scream of the wind, which clawed at their tents each night, stealing warmth and sleep in equal measure. To the outside world, they had disappeared into the void. For weeks, no telegrams came. No ships sighted smoke from their stoves. No word escaped the white. And still, the men pressed forward, deeper into the unknown, with only the crunch of their boots and the slow, rhythmic breath of their dogs to remind them that they were still alive. What none of them could know was that their journey, meticulously mapped, bravely endured, was already sliding into legend. For the ice remembers everything, even when men do not return. By the second week, the men had carved out a camp at the edge of a glacier, its blue walls rising like frozen cathedrals above their canvas tents. They anchored ropes deep into the ice, fearing the sudden storms that could sweep everything into the abyss. The huskies, restless and howling, pawed at the snow as though they sensed something unseen. The explorers kept meticulous records. One diary described the nights as unbearable, the wind screaming through the fabric of their tents like a chorus of voices. Another spoke of the cold so bitter it burned skin raw and froze their breath into tiny daggers of ice on their mustaches. Yet, amid the misery, there was also more. By lantern light, they sketched the glittering walls of the glacier, noting how the stars seemed closer here, how the silence was so absolute it felt almost alive. Supplies dwindled faster than they had planned. Fuel for the stoves ran low, and the dogs grew thin on half rations. Each evening, the men huddled around a flickering flame, sharing whispered hopes of reaching unexplored valleys just beyond the horizon. They laughed at memories of home, at warm pubs and familiar songs, but behind the smiles lingered a quiet dread. One entry, smeared by frost, carried a line that still chills the reader. The ice creaks at night, not from wind nor from weight, but as if it breathes. It was the first hint that their camp, solid and secure on the surface, might rest atop something far less stable. The further they pushed, the more the land itself seemed to twist against them. White stretched into white, horizon bleeding into sky until the men could no longer tell ground from air. Their compasses quivered, needles twitching as if the poles themselves had betrayed them. The journals speak of days spent walking into what appeared to be open plains, only to find sheer ice ridges rising out of the mist like hidden walls. Others describe sudden fog, rolling in so thick that one man swore he saw shadows moving inside it, figures pacing just beyond sight. The dogs snarled and refused to advance, their breath clouding in the frozen air. One page tells of the silence. It is louder than thunder. The silence crushes the chest. When the wind ceases, it feels as if the world itself has died. Another describes mirages, mountains shimmering in the distance, always retreating as the men drew near. They began to doubt the maps, then each other. Provisions dwindled. They marked the days in their log, but some entries vanished. Whole dates left blank as if forgotten. One final note in red pencil read simply, "We are being led in circles." The ice does not end. From that moment, the line between journey and entrapment blurred. The horizon no longer promised escape. It became a prison without walls. One page tells of the silence. It is louder than thunder. The silence crushes the chest. When the wind ceases, it feels as if the world itself has died. Another describes mirages, mountains shimmering in the distance, always retreating as the men drew near. They began to doubt the maps, then each other. Provisions dwindled. They marked the days in their log, but some entries vanished. Whole dates left blank as if forgotten. One final note in red pencil read simply, "We are being led in circles." The ice does not end. From that moment, the line between journey and entrapment blurred. The horizon no longer promised escape. It became a prison without walls. Some swore the storm had voices within it, low groans, whispers, even laughter. Others spoke of shapes moving in the blizzard, towering shadows that melted as the snow cleared, only to reappear again at the edge of sight. And then came the silence, an abrupt stillness, as though the storm had never been. But the damage was done. Half their camp was gone. The men were broken, and in their eyes lingered the terrible question, had the storm truly ended, or was it only waiting? When the storm finally broke, what remained was not relief, but dread. The land lay deathly still, a desert of ice sculpted by the storm's rage. Snow drifts buried their supplies, tents half swallowed by white mounds. The world felt muted, as though even sound itself had been frozen. The survivors stumbled through the wreckage. One man noted, "The silence presses against the ear. It feels as though we are buried alive." Another recorded that the dogs refused to move, lying down with eyes fixed on something unseen beyond the ridges. In the middle of the camp, they found the footprints of their own men. Yet some led away from camp into the wilderness, never to return. The trail ended abruptly, swallowed by snow. No body was found, no sign of struggle, only empty prints fading into nothing. The journals also speak of strange lights shimmering above the ice, like pale green curtains unfurling in the sky. The aurora danced overhead, beautiful yet mocking, a reminder that nature itself seemed to be watching them. As food dwindled and spirits broke, men began to hear things. Whispers in the night, a hand brushing against canvas. The crunch of footsteps just outside the tent, though no one was there when they looked. Each dawn revealed fewer voices around the fire, fewer eyes staring into the endless white. The frozen silence had become their new enemy, more suffocating than the storm, more haunting than the cold. The final entries in the explorers' journals are fragmented, written in trembling hands. Ink blots stain the paper as though frozen fingers struggled to hold the pen. One note reads, "The food is gone. The dogs, gone too. We hear voices in the wind. They call our names." Another diary speaks of a man who wandered into the snow, claiming he saw a figure in black waiting for him. He never returned. The others began to argue, torn between pressing forward or retreating to the coast. But by then, retreat was impossible. Their path back was buried beneath mountains of ice. The last surviving pages revealed desperate measures, burning sleds for warmth, melting snow with lanterns, rationing scraps of lather. Yet even as their bodies weakened, the greatest weight was not hunger, but fear. Fear of the silence. Fear of the shadows that seemed to circle the camp at night. The very last line, scrawled with almost no strength left, reads, "The ice will take us, but we are not alone." After that, the pages end. No more words, no more lives, just frozen ink, preserved in the heart of Antarctica, waiting for someone to find them. Years passed before another expedition braved those frozen wastes. When they stumbled upon the abandoned camp, it was as if time itself had stopped. Tents still half buried, crates still scattered, journals stiff with ice. The snow had preserved everything, except the men. No bodies were ever found. Not a single trace of the explorers remained, as though the ice had swallowed them whole. Their journals, however, survived, fragile windows into their final days. Those who read them felt unease creep into their hearts, as if the words carried something beyond ink, something alive. The rescuers swore they heard strange echoes across the ice, footsteps crunching where no one walked, whispers carried on the wind. One man even claimed he saw figures moving in the distance, pale and thin, watching. But when they gave chase, there was nothing. To this day, no one knows what truly became of the Silent Expedition. Were they victims of cold and hunger? Or did they encounter something far older, far darker, hidden in Antarctica's endless white? The answers lie buried beneath the ice. Perhaps forever.